Commander Jake Morrison sat in his office at the Earth Defense Force headquarters, staring at the morning reports. It was just another quiet Tuesday until the alarms started blaring. The sound echoed through the hallways as red lights flashed. On every wall? Jake jumped up from his desk and ran toward the main command center. Captain Lisa Bennett was already there, her face pale as she looked at the massive screen. The image showed something Jake had never seen before. A tall, thin creature made of what looked like living crystal stood in front of a strange building. The creature's body was see-through, and light seemed to dance inside it like trapped rainbows. "What am I looking at?" Jake asked, still trying to catch his breath. "First contact," Lisa said quietly. "This message came through our deep space. Sensors 10 minutes ago. It's from something called the Galactic Council." Jake felt his heart skip a beat. After decades of looking for signs of alien life, they had finally found it. Rather, it had found them. The crystal being on the screen began to speak, and somehow the words came through in perfect English. "People of Earth, I am Ambassador Thylon of the Zellery people. We come to you in desperate need of help. Our world is dying, and our people are being destroyed by an enemy we cannot fight." The ambassador's voice was soft and musical, like wind chimes in a gentle breeze, but Jake could hear the fear underneath the beautiful sound. The crystal being's glow was weak, flickering like a candle about to go out. "We have tried to contact other species in the galaxy, but they tell us there is no hope. The Korthok Empire has conquered 23 worlds in the past year. They are strong, and we are weak. But we have heard stories about your people. They say you come from a death world. They say you know how to fight." Jake looked at Lisa with confusion. "Death world? What does that mean?" Lisa pulled up her tablet and started typing quickly. "I'm running the message through our translation computers. Give me a second." Her fingers moved fast across the screen. "Here it is. A death world is what they call a planet that is dangerous to live on. A world with predators, diseases, natural disasters, and constant threats to survival." "You mean Earth?" Jake asked. "Apparently most planets in the galaxy are safe and peaceful. No dangerous animals. No storms, no earthquakes. The aliens think we must be incredibly tough to survive on a world like ours." On the screen, Ambassador Thylon continued speaking. "Our world of Christia has been attacked by the Korthak Empire. They are large, violent beings who enjoy causing pain. They have weapons that can destroy our cities in seconds. They've captured thousands of our people and forced them to work in terrible conditions." The image changed to show the Zellery homeworld. It was the most beautiful place Jake had ever seen. Crystal towers reached toward a purple sky, and rainbow bridges connected floating islands. Gardens of glowing plants covered the ground, and streams of liquid light flowed between the buildings. But now the crystal towers were broken and black. Smoke rose from the ruins. The Galactic Council has peacekeeping forces, but they have never faced an enemy like the Korthok. Their soldiers are trained for patrol duty and crowd control, not for real war. The Korthok defeated them easily? Jake watched as the scene showed alien peacekeepers running away from large, dark creatures. The peacekeepers looked like they had never seen violence before. They dropped their weapons and fled when the enemy charged at them. "We are not warriors," Thylon said. "We have never needed to be. Our people have lived in peace for over 10,000 years. We do not know how to fight, and we do not know how to hate. But the Korthok know both very well."
Admiral Pete Rodriguez
entered the command center, his uniform still wrinkled from sleep. "What's the situation?" he asked. "First contact, sir," Jake replied. "And they're asking for military help." Pete's eyes widened as he looked at the screen. "Are you serious? After all these years of wondering if we're alone in the universe, the first aliens we meet want us to fight their war." "It's not that simple," Lisa said. She had been listening to the entire message while taking notes. "From what I can understand, most species in the galaxy evolved on peaceful worlds. They never had to deal with predators, competition for resources, or survival challenges. They think we're some kind of super soldiers because we survived on Earth." Admiral Rodriguez shook his head. "That's crazy. We're just normal people. Normal to us," Lisa replied. "But think about it. We've been dealing with lions, tigers, bears, sharks, poisonous snakes, deadly spiders, hurricanes, earthquakes, floods, droughts, diseases, and each other for millions of years. Most species apparently never had to deal with any of that. The screen, Ambassador Thylin, was showing images of the Korthok warriors. They were huge, standing at least 8 feet tall, with thick gray skin and massive claws. Their eyes glowed red and their teeth were sharp like those of a predator. Carried weapons that shot beams of energy and war armor that looked nearly indestructible. These are the Korthok, Thylin explained. They are the only species in the galaxy that practices warfare. They have conquered every world they have attacked because no one knows how to fight them. But we have heard that Deathworlders are different. We have heard that you understand conflict in ways that peaceful species cannot. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Responsibility was enormous. An entire species was asking for help, and they seemed to think humans were their only hope. Korthok will reach the core of our world in 7 days, Thylin continued. After that, our people will be extinct. We know we are asking much of you, but we have nowhere else to turn. Will you help us? The message ended, leaving the command center in complete silence. Jake looked around at the faces of his colleagues. They all seemed to be thinking the same thing. How do you respond to a request like that? Admiral Rodriguez was the first to speak. We need to analyze this situation carefully. We don't know anything about galactic politics, alien technology, or what we're getting ourselves into. We can't just ignore it, Jake said. We're going to be wiped out if we don't help. Lisa was already pulling up star charts on her computer. According to the coordinates they sent, their world is about 50 light years away. With our fastest ships, we could get there in 3 days. That's assuming their message is real, Pete said. This could be some kind of test or trap. The energy signatures are consistent with what we'd expect from an alien transmission, Lisa replied. And the level of detail in their message would be impossible to fake. Jake walked closer to the screen, where the image of the destroyed Zelari city still glowed. What if they're right? What if we really are better at fighting than other species? You mean because we come from a death world? Lisa asked. Think about it, Jake said. We've been fighting for survival since we first stood upright. We've fought animals, natural disasters, diseases, and wars with each other. Maybe that experience really does make us different. Admiral Rodriguez nodded slowly. It's possible. But sending a military force to another star system to fight unknown aliens, that's a huge risk. So is letting an entire species get wiped out when we might be able to help, Jake replied. The Admiral looked at both of them for a long moment. All right. I'll contact the President and the UN Security Council. But in the meantime, I want you to put together a small team. If we're going to do this, we need to be prepared for anything. Jake felt his pulse quicken. What kind of team? Small and flexible, Pete said. People who can think on their feet and adapt to unknown situations. We're not going to war yet. We're going to assess the situation and see if we can actually help. Lisa was already making notes. We'll need a combat engineer, a medic, and a communications specialist, and someone who can lead them. Admiral Rodriguez looked directly at Jake. That would be you, Commander. Think you're ready to make first contact with an alien species? Jake thought about the fear in Ambassador Thylin's voice and the images of the destroyed Crystal City. Somewhere out there, people were dying, and they had asked Earth for help. It might be the most important decision in human history. Yes, sir, Jake said. I'm ready. The Starship Used Defender dropped out of hyperspace near the Christia system, and Jake Morrison felt his stomach lurch from the sudden change. Through the main window, he could see the alien world for the first time with his own eyes. It was even more beautiful than the images Ambassador Thylin had shown them. But something was terribly wrong. Black smoke rose from the planet's surface, and Jake could see the dark shapes of alien warships orbiting above the crystal cities. The Korthok had arrived before them. My God, whispered Danny Clark, the team's combat engineer. He was a short, stocky man with rough hands and a mind that could turn anything into a weapon. Look at the size of those ships. The Korthok vessels were massive, each one easily 10 times larger than the Defender. They looked like flying fortresses, all sharp edges and dark metal. Energy beams shot down from the ships to the planet below, and Jake could see explosions blooming like deadly flowers across the surface. "Ryan, can you get us a communication channel?" Jake asked. Ryan Hughes, their communications specialist, was already working at his console. He was young and thin, with quick fingers that danced across the control panels. "I'm picking up multiple signals. The Korthok are using some kind of battle frequency, but I'm also getting weaker transmissions. From the planet's surface, try to reach the Zalari," Jake ordered. After a few minutes of static, a familiar voice came through the speakers. It was Ambassador Thylan, but the crystal being sounded even more frightened than before. "Human vessel, is that really you? We had almost given up hope." "We're here," Jake replied. "What's your situation?" "Terrible. The Korthok arrived 2 days ago. They destroyed our orbital defenses in minutes. Most of our people are hiding in the underground crystal caverns, but the enemy is hunting us down one by one." Susan Taylor, the team's medic, leaned forward. She was a calm woman with gentle eyes, but Jake knew she had seen enough battlefield injuries to handle anything. "How many casualties?" "Thousands," Thylan replied, and Jake could hear the crystal being's voice breaking. "They do not kill us quickly. They seem to enjoy our suffering." Jake felt anger rising in his chest. "Where can we meet you safely?" "There is a cavern system 20 kilometers north of the capital city. We have hidden 300 of our people there. But please be careful. The Korthok have patrols everywhere, and their warriors are unlike anything you have ever seen." "We'll be there in 2 hours," Jake promised. The Defender's pilot, a steady man named Captain Lee, took the ship down through the atmosphere. They had to dodge several Korthok patrol ships, but the human vessel was smaller and faster than the alien warships. The enemy seemed more interested in bombing the cities than chasing one small craft as they flew over the planet's surface. Jake got his first real look at the destruction. The beautiful crystal towers were broken and burning. The rainbow bridges had been shattered, and the glowing gardens were covered in ash. It looked like a paradise that had been turned into hell. "How could they do this to such a peaceful world?" Suzanne asked quietly. "Because they can," Danny replied grimly. "And because no one ever taught these people how to fight back. They landed the Defender in a hidden valley near the cavern system." The team gathered their equipment and prepared to meet the Zalari face to face. Jake had no idea what to expect. The cavern entrance was hidden behind a wall of crystal formations that looked natural, but had clearly been shaped by intelligent hands. As they approached, the crystals began to glow with a soft blue light, and Jake heard the musical sound of Zalari voices. Ambassador Thylan emerged from the cavern, and Jake was surprised by how small the alien was. The crystal being stood only about 5 feet tall, and its body was so thin it looked like it might break at any moment. Behind Thylan came dozens of other Zalari, all of them glowing weakly with fear. "Welcome to our world," Thylan said, though there was no joy in the greeting. "I wish you could have seen it before the Korthok came." Jake looked around at the gathered aliens. They were all different colors and sizes, but they all had the same look of hopelessness in their crystal eyes. Many of them were injured, with cracks running through their transparent bodies. "This is Elder Vash," Thylan said, introducing an older Zalari whose body was a deep purple color. "He leads our people in spiritual matters." Elder Vash stepped forward and spoke in a voice like distant thunder. "We have heard stories about Deathworlders, but we never thought we would meet one. Your species is legendary among the peaceful worlds." "Legendary how?" Jake asked. "They say you come from a world so dangerous that only the strongest survive. They say, secrets of violence that other species have forgotten or never learned." Danny laughed, but there was no humor in it. "We don't know any secrets. Just do what we have to do to stay alive." "That is exactly what we mean, Elder," Vash replied. "We do not know how to do what we have to do. We have never had to." Ryan was scanning the area with his equipment. "I'm picking up Korthok signals about 5 kilometers from here. They're moving in patrol patterns, but they don't seem to know about this cave system yet." "They will find us eventually," Thylan said. "They have sensors that can detect our life energy. We cannot hide forever." Susan was examining the injured Zalari with her medical equipment. "These wounds," she said, "they're not from weapons. They're from sonic attacks. The Korthok warriors make terrible sounds when they fight, Elder Vosh explained. Their war. Cries can shatter our crystal bodies. Have no defense against them. Jake was beginning to understand the situation. The Zelari were not just physically fragile. They were completely unprepared for any kind of conflict. They had never developed weapons, tactics, or even the mental toughness needed to fight back. Tell us about the Korthok, Jake said. What? Are they like? Large Stylin replied. Much larger than you. They have thick skin that can stop most energy weapons. They carry plasma rifles that can melt through our crystal buildings. But worst of all, they seem to enjoy causing pain. How? Many of them are there? Danny asked. We estimate about 2,000 warriors on the planet, Elder Vosh said, but their ships can bring more if needed. Jake did some quick math. 4 humans against 2,000 alien warriors. The odds were not good. But then he remembered what the aliens had said about Deathworlders. The odds didn't matter as much as he thought. Have you tried to fight back at all? Susan asked. The Zelari looked at each other with confusion. Fight back? We do not understand. Defend yourselves. Use weapons. Hurt them before they hurt you. We have no weapons, Thylin said. We have never needed them, and we do not know how to hurt others. It is not in our nature. Jake was starting to realize just how different humans were from the rest of the galaxy. The Zelari were not cowards. They simply had no concept of violence beyond what they had learned from being victims. What about the Galactic Council? Ryan asked. What happened to their peacekeeping forces? They came 3 days ago, Elder Vosh said sadly. 50 ships. With thousands of peacekeepers, the Korthok destroyed them in less than an hour. How is that possible? Jake asked. The peacekeepers are trained to break up arguments and stop riots, Thylin explained. They have never fought a real war. When the Korthok attacked, the peacekeepers tried to negotiate. They tried to find a peaceful solution. The Korthok just laughed and killed them. Danny was checking his weapons and equipment. So we're the only ones who can help. You are our only hope, Elder Vosh said. The stories say that Deathworlders understand violence in ways that peaceful species cannot. They say you can think like predators. Jake looked at his 3 teammates. They were just regular humans doing their jobs. But maybe that was enough. Maybe growing up on a world with hurricanes and earthquakes, and wild animals really had taught them something that other species had never learned. All right, Jake said. We'll help you. But we're going to need to do things differently than you're used to. What do you mean? Thylin asked. We're going to teach you how to fight back. The Zelari looked shocked. But we cannot hurt others. It is against our nature. Then your nature is going to get you all killed, Danny said bluntly. Sometimes the only way to protect what you love is to destroy what threatens it. Jake could see the struggle in the aliens' crystal eyes. They were being asked to become something they had never been before. But the alternative was extinction. We'll try, Elder Vosh said finally. Show us what Deathworlders do when they are threatened. Jake smiled grimly. First, we learn everything we can about our enemy. Then we make them regret ever coming to your world, as if summoned by his words. The sound of heavy footsteps echoed through the cavern. The Korthok had found them. The footsteps grew louder, and Jake could hear the Zelari behind him starting to panic. Their crystal bodies began to flicker and dim with terror. He turned to Elder Vosh and spoke in a low, urgent voice. How many exits does this cavern have? 3, the Elder replied, his voice shaking. But they all lead to open ground. We will be seen. Jake looked at his team. Danny was already checking his weapons, while Susan was helping the wounded Zelari move deeper into the cave. Ryan had his communication equipment ready to call for backup if needed. Listen to me, Jake said to the gathered aliens. We're going to do something that might seem strange to you. We're going to fight back. Ambassador Thylin's crystal form trembled. But there are so many of them, and they are so strong. Numbers don't always matter, Danny said, pulling out a small device from his pack. Sometimes it's about using what you have in ways the enemy doesn't expect. The footsteps stopped just outside the cavern entrance. Jake could hear voices speaking in a harsh, guttural language. The Korthok were discussing something, probably planning their attack. "Ryan, can you understand what they're saying?" Jake whispered. The communications specialist adjusted his equipment and listened carefully. "They're saying something about crystal creatures and easy prey. I think they're planning to come in and capture everyone." Jake felt his anger rising again. Korthok talked about the Zalari like they were hunting animals. "How many of them?" "Sounds like maybe 6 or 7 voices," Ryan replied. Danny smiled grimly. "Good, that's a fair fight." Zalari looked confused. "Fair, but they are much larger than you." "Size isn't everything," Susan said quietly. She was the gentlest member of the team, but Jake knew she had grown up in rough neighborhoods and knew how to handle herself. Sometimes being smaller means you can move faster and think quicker. The first Korthok warrior appeared at the cavern entrance, and Jake got his first close look at their enemy. The alien was even more intimidating in person than in the images. It stood nearly 8 feet tall, with thick gray skin that looked like armor. Its eyes glowed red in the dim light, and its mouth was full of sharp teeth. In its hands it carried a weapon that hummed with energy. The Korthok looked around the cavern and saw the cowering Zalari. It let out a sound that was half roar, half laugh. The sound was so loud and terrifying that several of the crystal beings cracked under the pressure. "Surrender, crystal creatures," the warrior said in broken English. "You cannot hide from the Korthok Empire. We will take you to work in our mines until you break." Jake stepped out from behind a crystal formation. "I don't think so." The Korthok warrior stared at him with surprise. It had clearly never seen a human before. "What are you, strange creature? You do not look like the others." "I'm human," Jake replied calmly. "And you're trespassing." The warrior laughed, a sound like grinding stone. "Human? I have never heard of this species. Are you another weak race that thinks it can hide from us? Why don't you come in here and find out?" Jake said. The Korthok warrior raised its weapon, but before it could fire, Danny's improvised explosive device went off near the cavern entrance. The explosion sent rocks flying and filled the air with dust. The warrior stumbled backward, confused and temporarily blinded. Jake didn't waste the opportunity. He rushed forward with a knife in his hand, moving faster than the large alien could react. The Korthok's thick skin was tough, but Jake had studied the medical data Susan had gathered. He knew exactly where to strike. The blade found a gap in the warrior's natural armor, and the alien let out a cry of pain and surprise. It had never been hurt by such a small creature before. Jake rolled away before the Korthok could grab him. "It's impossible," the warrior growled. "You are too small to hurt me." "That's what everyone thinks," Jake replied, circling around the confused alien, "right up until they're wrong." More Korthok warriors appeared at the cavern entrance, but Danny was ready for them. He had rigged the crystal formations to collapse, and when he triggered the charges, tons of rock blocked the main entrance. The warriors were trapped outside, and they could hear them roaring with frustration. "Nice work," Jake said, still dodging attacks from the wounded warrior in the cavern. "I used to work in demolition," Danny replied. "Never thought I'd be using it to fight aliens." The Korthok warrior was getting slower and more confused. It kept trying to grab Jake, but the human was always just out of reach. Finally, Susan stepped forward with a small device in her hand. "Hey, ugly," she called out. The warrior turned toward her, and she activated the device. It made a high-pitched sound that seemed to hurt the alien's ears. The Korthok stumbled and fell to its knees, holding its head. "Sonic disruptor," Susan explained. "I built it based on what Elder Vash told us about their war cries. If they can use sound as a weapon, so can we." Jake quickly tied up the fallen warrior with some cable from Ryan's equipment. The alien was still conscious, but seemed stunned by what had happened. "This is not possible," the warrior said weakly. "Small creatures cannot defeat Korthok warriors. We are the strongest in the galaxy. You're the strongest among species that don't know how to fight," Jake corrected. "But we come from a world where everything is trying to kill you. We've had to learn to be creative." The Zalari slowly came out of their hiding places, staring at the captured Korthok with amazement. They had never seen one of their tormentors defeated before. "You actually heard it," Thylan said in wonder. "We thought they were invincible." "Nothing is invincible," Danny said, checking his equipment. Everything has weaknesses. You just have to find them and exploit them. Elder Vash approached the captured warrior carefully. Why do you attack peaceful worlds? What do you gain from causing suffering? The Korthok looked at him with contempt. Peaceful worlds are easy to conquer. Your resources become ours. Your people become our slaves. It is the way of the strong. No, Jake said firmly. It's the way of bullies. Bullies always back down when someone fights back. Ryan was monitoring his communication equipment. I'm picking up more Korthok signals. They're sending reinforcements to this location. How many? Jake asked. No, maybe 20 warriors? They'll be here in about 30 minutes. Jake looked at his team and the gathered Zalari. They were outnumbered. But he was starting to understand something important. The Korthok were used to easy victories. They'd never faced real resistance before. We need to move, Jake said. This place is compromised. Where can we go? Thylon asked. They will find us wherever we hide. We're not going to hide, Jake replied. We're going to fight back. Oh, but we do not know how, Elder Vash said. Then we'll teach you, Susan said, starting right now. Jake pointed to the crystal formations around them. These crystals can be weapons if you know how to use them. The combat engineer picked up a sharp piece of crystal and demonstrated how to hold it like a knife. It's all about leverage and targeting weak points. You don't need to be strong if you're smart in your sonic abilities, Susan added. You can focus them correctly. They can do more than just communicate. They can disorient enemies. A young Zellery named Fix stepped forward. The crystal being was smaller than the others, but there was something different in its eyes. Show us how to hurt them. Show us how to make them afraid. Jake smiled. Now you're thinking like a Deathworlder. Over the next 20 minutes, the humans gave the Zellari a crash course in basic combat. They taught them how to use the crystal formations as weapons, how to work together to surround enemies, and how to use their natural abilities in new ways. The Zellari were surprisingly quick learners. Once they understood that they could fight back, they began to adapt their skills for combat. Their ability to blend with crystal formations made them excellent at ambushes. Their sonic communication could be focused into disorienting attacks. Remember, Jake told them, you don't have to be stronger than them. You just have to be smarter and more determined. Ryan looked up from his equipment. They're coming. 20 Korthok warriors, moving fast. Jake looked at the group of newly trained Zellari. They were still scared, but there was something else in their crystal eyes now. Determination. Are you ready? Jake asked. We are ready, Elder Vash replied. Show us what Deathworlders do when they refuse to surrender. The sound of approaching footsteps echoed through the cavern again. But this time, Jake wasn't worried. This time, they were ready to fight back. The Korthok were about to learn what happened when bullies picked on the wrong species. The 20 Korthok warriors entered the cavern like a storm of violence. They were bigger than the first warrior, with more scars and better weapons. Their leader was a massive creature with red markings on his gray skin and eyes that glowed, like burning coals. I am Captain Drax, the leader announced in a voice like thunder. Where are the humans who dared to attack our warrior? Jake stepped out from behind a crystal formation, but he wasn't alone. Elder Vash and 12 other Zellari moved with him, their crystal bodies glowing with new purpose. The sight confused the Korthok warriors, who had never seen their victims act with confidence before. Right here, Jake said calmly. And we're not going anywhere, Captain Drax laughed, a sound that made the cavern walls shake. Foolish creatures. You think you can fight the Korthok Empire? Emerging from his hiding spot with several Zellari, warriors beside him, the Korthok looked around the cavern with growing confusion. The crystal beings were not cowering in fear like they usually did. Instead, they were spread out in fighting positions, holding sharp crystal weapons and moving with purpose. What trickery is this? Captain Drax demanded. Crystal creatures do not fight. They are weak and useless. They were never weak, Susan said, stepping into view with her own group of Zellari. They just needed someone to show them how to use their strengths. Fix, the young Zellari who had been eager to learn, spoke up with a voice like singing crystal. We are not useless anymore. We are defenders of Christia. The Korthok warriors raised their weapons, but Jake was ready. Now he shouted. The cavern erupted into chaos. The Zalari had spent the last 20 minutes learning to use their crystal bodies like mirrors, reflecting and focusing light in ways that blinded and confused the Korthok. Suddenly, the warriors found themselves surrounded by flashing lights, and unable to see their targets clearly. Danny's explosive devices went off around the cavern. It's not to hurt the aliens, but to create noise and confusion. The Korthok were used to intimidating their enemies with sound, but now they couldn't hear anything over the explosions. Susan's sonic disruptors, now being used by several Zalari, filled the air with high-pitched sounds that made the Korthok warriors stumble and lose their balance. The aliens had never faced enemies who could use sound as a weapon better than they could. Jake moved through the chaos like a ghost, using the crystal formations as cover. He had learned to fight in urban environments back on Earth, where buildings and obstacles could be used to level the playing field against stronger opponents. A Korthok warrior swung his massive weapon at Jake, but the human rolled under the attack and came up behind the alien. Jake's knife found another weak spot in the warrior's armor, and the alien roared in pain and surprise. "Impossible," the warrior shouted. "You are too small." "Size doesn't matter if you know where to hit," Jake replied, dodging another attack across. The cavern, Fix, and two other Zalari were working together to take down a single Korthok warrior. They had learned to use their crystal bodies to confuse the enemy, appearing and disappearing among the crystal formations like living light. Weapons. Elder Vosh was using his deep, powerful voice in a new way. Instead of the gentle tones the Zalari usually made, he was creating focused sonic attacks that could knock the Korthok warriors off their feet. The old crystal being had discovered that his people's natural abilities could be deadly when used correctly. "This is not how wars are supposed to work," Captain Drax shouted, trying to rally his confused warriors. "The weak are supposed to surrender to the strong." "Maybe that's true on other worlds," Ryan said, appearing from behind a crystal pillar. "With a group of Zalari, but we're Deathworlders. We don't surrender." The communications specialist had been working with the Zalari to coordinate their attacks. The crystal beings had natural telepathic abilities that Ryan had learned to enhance. With his equipment, now they could communicate instantly across the battlefield. Moving together like a single organism, Captain Drax realized his warriors were losing. 3 of them were already down, and the others were confused and frightened. This was not supposed to happen. The Korthok were the strongest warriors in the galaxy. "Retreat," he commanded, "back to the ships." But Danny had been expecting this. He had rigged the cavern exits with more explosive devices, and when the Korthok tried to flee, they found their escape routes blocked. "Where are you going?" Danny called out, "The party's just getting started." The trapped Korthok warriors looked around desperately. "You cannot do this," Captain Drax said, his voice losing its confident tone. "We are the Korthok Empire. We do not lose battles." "You do now," Jake replied, "because you've never fought anyone who knew how to fight back." Susan stepped forward. With her sonic disruptor aimed at the captain, "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to contact your ships and tell them to leave this system. If you don't, we're going to show you what Deathworlders do to bullies." "You dare threaten me?" Captain Drax roared, but Jake could hear the fear underneath the anger. "We're not threatening you," Jake said. "We're teaching you. It's the same way you taught the Zalari about fear. The difference is we're better teachers." Fix moved closer to the captain, the young Zalari's crystal body now glowing with confidence. "Instead of terror, you made us afraid for so long. Now it is your turn to be afraid." For the first time in his life, he was truly frightened. "Hey, this is not over," he said weakly. "The Empire will send more warriors, stronger ones." "Let them come," Elder Vosh said, his voice now carrying the authority of someone who had learned to fight for his people. "We will be ready." Jake looked at the Zalari around him. In less than an hour, they had transformed from helpless victims into confident defenders. They had learned that they didn't need to be physically strong to be effective warriors. It just needed to be smart, determined, and willing to work together. "Ryan, can you get me a communication channel to the Korthok ships?" Jake asked. "Already on it," Ryan replied, his equipment linking to the captain's communication device. Jake's voice went out to every Korthok ship in the system. This is Commander Jake Morrison of the Earth Defense Force. Your captain and his warriors are our prisoners. You have 1 hour to leave this system and never return. If you don't, we'll teach you the same lesson we taught them." The response came back immediately. It was a different voice, older and more cautious. "This is War Chief Krax of the Korthok. Empire, who are you to make demands of us?" "We're humans," Jake replied. "We're Deathworlders. And we're the reason your invincible warriors are sitting on the ground with their weapons taken away." There was a long silence from the ships. Then War Chief Krax spoke again, his voice uncertain. "Humans? We have never heard of this species." "You're hearing about us now," Jake said. "We're the people who don't surrender. We're the ones who fight back when others give up. We're the ones who are going to teach the galaxy that bullies can be stopped." Another silence. Then Krax's voice came back, filled with something the Korthok had never felt before: respect.
"We will leave this system," he said.
"But this is not over. The Empire will want to know more about these Deathworlders." "Good," Jake replied. "Because we're going to have a lot more to teach you." The Korthok ships began to move away from the planet, their engines glowing as they prepared to leave the system. Captain Drax and his warriors were loaded onto a transport that would take them back to their ships. But not before they had learned a valuable lesson about underestimating their enemies, as the enemy ships disappeared into hyperspace. Zellery in the cavern began to celebrate. Their crystal bodies flashed with joy and relief. They had done the impossible. They had defeated the Korthok Empire. "We won," Fix said in amazement. "We actually won." "You did more than win," Jake told the young Zellery. "You learned how to fight for yourselves. That's something no one can ever take away from you." Elder Vosh approached Jake with gratitude, glowing in his crystal eyes. "You have given us something more valuable than victory. You have given us the knowledge that we do not have to be victims." Jake looked around at the Zellery, who were now confident and proud instead of scared and helpless. That's what Deathworlders do. We don't just survive, we teach others how to survive too. But even as they celebrated, Jake knew this was just the beginning. Korthok Empire would spread word about the humans across the galaxy. Soon, every species would know that there was a new kind of warrior in the universe. One that didn't give up, didn't surrender, and didn't let bullies win. The Deathworlders had arrived, and the galaxy would never be the same. 6 months after the battle at Christia, Jake Morrison stood in the brand new training facility on Earth. Around him, beings from 17 different alien species were learning what the instructors called survival tactics and what the students had started calling the human way. The training center was built in the mountains of Colorado, where the harsh environment could teach the aliens what it meant to live on a death world. Jake watched as a group of Zellery worked with some tall blue-skinned aliens called the Nexari to build shelter from an approaching snowstorm. "How were they doing?" asked Captain Lisa Bennett, who had been promoted to head the new Galactic Defense Initiative. "Better than I expected," Jake replied. "Fix and his team are teaching the Nexari how to use crystal formations for protection. The Nexari are showing the Zellery how to generate heat using their natural energy fields. It was amazing to watch. Species that had never imagined fighting back were now learning to work together and defend themselves." The training program had been Jake's idea, but it had grown beyond anything he had originally planned. Admiral Pete Rodriguez joined them on the observation deck. "We just got another request for help. This time it's from the Volante Republic. The Korthok Empire is threatening 3 of their worlds." "What did you tell them?" Jake asked. "Same thing we tell everyone," Pete replied. "We'll help, but only if they're willing to learn how to help themselves." That had become humanity's policy after the victory at Christia. The Earth Defense Force would provide assistance to any peaceful species threatened by aggressive neighbors, but only if those species were willing to learn how to defend themselves. "The Galactic Council wants to make it official," Lisa said. "They want to declare humans the official military advisors to all peaceful worlds." Jake shook his head. "We're not trying to become the galaxy's police force. We just want to teach people that they don't have to be victims." The door to the observation deck opened and Elder Vosh entered. The old Zellery had become one of the most effective military strategists in the galaxy,
Using his people's natural
telepathic abilities to coordinate complex battle plans.
"Commander Morrison?"
Elder Vash said, his crystal body glowing with respect. I wanted to update you on the situation with the Korthok Empire. What's happening? Jake asked. Something unexpected, Elder Vash replied. War Chief Krax has requested a meeting. He wants to discuss peace terms. Jake was surprised. The Korthok Empire had always been known for their aggression and refusal. To negotiate, are you sure it's not a trap? We do not think so, Elder Vash said. Our intelligence sources suggest that the Empire is having internal problems. Many Korthok warriors are questioning their traditional ways after hearing about what happened at Christia. Admiral Rodriguez leaned forward with interest. What kind of problems? Seems that some Korthok are interested in learning about honor and fair fighting, Elder Vash explained. They have heard stories about how humans fight to protect others rather than to conquer them. Some of them want to know more about this concept. Jake remembered the conversation he had with Captain Drax after the battle. The Korthok warrior had seemed genuinely confused by the idea that strong beings could choose to protect weak ones, instead of enslaving them. Where does Krax want to meet? Jake asked. Neutral space, near the Harmony Station, Elder Vash replied. The station is run by the Galactic Council, so it would be safe for all parties. Lisa pulled up a star chart on her tablet. That's 3 days away by our fastest ship. I think we should go, Jake said. If there's a chance to end this conflict without more fighting, we should take it. Admiral Rodriguez nodded. I agree, but you're not going alone. Take a full diplomatic team and enough security to handle trouble if it comes up. 3 days later, Jake found himself in a conference room aboard Harmony Station, sitting across from War Chief Krax. The Korthok leader was even larger than Captain Drax, with scars covering his gray skin and eyes that seemed to burn with inner fire. But there was something different about him that Jake couldn't quite identify. So you are the human who defeated my warriors, Krax said in a voice like grinding stone. We defended ourselves, Jake replied. Your warriors chose to attack peaceful people. We just taught them that actions have consequences. Krax studied Jake for a long moment. For 1,000 years, the Korthok Empire has conquered worlds because we were the only species that understood war. We believed that made us superior to all others. And now? Jake asked. Now I am not so sure, Krax admitted. My warriors tell me stories about the battle at Christia. They say you could have killed them all, but you chose not to. They say you fought only to protect the weak ones, not to gain power for yourself. Jake nodded. That's what soldiers do. Real soldiers protect people who can't protect themselves. This is a concept we do not understand, Krax said. Korthok warriors fight to prove their strength and to gain resources for the Empire. We have never fought to protect others, Susan Taylor, who had joined the diplomatic team as a medical advisor, spoke up. Maybe that's why you're not as strong as you think you are? Krax's eyes flashed with anger. How dare you suggest that the Korthok are weak? I'm not saying you're weak, Susan replied calmly. I'm saying you're incomplete. You know how to fight for yourselves, but you don't know how to fight for something bigger than yourselves. That's what makes humans strong. The Korthok leader fell silent, considering her words. Finally, he spoke again. Many of my warriors are curious about human fighting methods. They have heard that you train others to fight alongside you rather than for you. That's right, Jake said. We believe that everyone has the right to defend themselves and protect what they love. Would you be willing to teach some of our warriors these methods? Krax asked. Jake was surprised by the request. You want us to train Korthok soldiers? Some of them? Krax replied. The younger ones who are interested in learning about honor and protection rather than conquest. Perhaps they could learn to use their strength for better purposes. Ch looked at his team. This was not what they had expected from the meeting. What about the Empire's policy of conquering peaceful worlds? That would have to change, Krax said. If some of our warriors learn your ways, they will not accept the old methods of simply taking what we want from weaker species. Elder Vash, who had been listening quietly, finally spoke. This could be the beginning of real peace in the galaxy. If the Korthok Empire stops conquering worlds, other aggressive species might follow their example. Jake thought about all the peaceful species they had met in the past 6 months. The Zelari, the Nexari, the Volante, and dozens of others. All of them had been living in fear of stronger neighbors. If the strongest aggressive species could be convinced to change their ways, it would transform the entire galaxy. We'll consider it, Jake said. But there would have to be conditions. What conditions? Krax asked. First, the Empire stops all military action against peaceful worlds. Second, any Korthok who want to learn our methods have to agree to use their training only for defense and protection. Third, the Empire provides assistance to help rebuild the worlds they've damaged. Krax was quiet for a long time. Jake could see that the Korthok leader was struggling with concepts that went against everything his people had ever believed. These are difficult terms, Krax finally said. Many of my people will resist such changes. Change is always difficult, Jake replied. But the alternative is continued conflict. Eventually, more species will learn to fight back the way the Zalari did. The Empire can either learn to coexist peacefully or face more and more resistance. You are right, Krax admitted. We have already received reports of other species beginning to organize their own defenses. The galaxy is changing, and we must change with it or be left behind. The negotiations continued for several hours, but by the end of the day, they had reached an agreement. The Korthok Empire would begin a gradual transformation from a conquering force to a defensive one. Volunteers from their military would train with human instructors to learn about honor, protection, and fighting for others rather than personal gain. As Jake prepared to leave Harmony Station, he reflected on how much had changed in just 6 months. The galaxy had gone from a place where peaceful species lived in constant fear to one where they were learning to defend themselves and work together. Admiral Rodriguez was waiting for him when he returned to Earth. How did it go? Than expected, Jake replied. I think we might actually have a chance at lasting peace. And if we don't, the Admiral asked. Jake smiled. Then we'll teach the galaxy that Deathworlders never give up. Keep fighting until everyone learns that bullies can be stopped and that peace is worth defending. Looking out at the stars, Jake knew that humanity's role in the galaxy was just beginning. We're no longer just survivors from a dangerous world. They had become teachers, showing other species that strength without wisdom was meaningless, and that true power came from protecting others rather than conquering them. The aliens had called for help and expected saviors. Instead, they found something better. Teachers who showed them how to save themselves. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly what it needed.